Now available in paperback and Kindle Unlimited, John Haynes, A Conversation with Death. The man who rules the world and the angel of darkness take on a horde of demons in this inaugural John Haynes series adventure. Get John Haynes, A Conversation with Death for 99 cents on Kindle or in paperback today.
Okay, we're going to take a trip through my old neighborhood. I'm going to show you where I used to live growing up. Now, I lived in this neighborhood for the first 15 years of my life before I moved back in 1988 to where I'm living right now. And I've lived it, and this is where I grew up back in the day. Now, a lot of this used to be abandoned buildings when I was a kid, but these days, it's a whole lot of different stuff. So, this building wasn't here when I was a kid, and all of this wasn't here when I was a kid, and all of this wasn't here when I was a kid. It used to look like this right here was just all abandoned lots, and this was what we saw growing up back in the early 80s and late 70s, was stuff like this, abandoned lots. That's what most of the Bronx was, because it was burnt down back then. It was all burnt down because of the redlining and a lot of landlords wanting to get insurance money due to the 1970s fiscal crisis. And it didn't really start getting better until the 1990s. That's when we started to see a lot of developments like that house over there. That used to be a bar over there. It used to be called Ritz Bar Rest, but now it's a Dunkin' Donuts. And all this area over here used to be industrial. All of this was primarily, mechanics, auto body shops, and stuff like that. Coming up on my old apartment building, but I want to show you something else. All this was industrial again. All that used to be industrial. And this used to be a factory. This is actually the factory that's right across the street from where I live. So this is what I used to look out the window and see when I was growing up for the first 15 years of my life, was this building, which was originally a factory, but now is a moving and storage facility. So all of this was an industrial area. And I remember when this area was primarily, again, industrial and mostly factories and stuff. I mean, we had a tasty bakery right down the street from where I used to live. So they used to ship all the tasty bred from right down the block from where I live. So again, all this was industrial. It still is. You can see where it still is. There's a project right over there. And it used to be the kids in the project used to think they lived better than where I used to live because they had a lot more amenities than what I used to have. And that's the parking lot. Also, I used to see that all the time. This used to be a factory as well, but then there was a fire and then they had to tear it down. And for the last 30, 40 years, it's been a parking lot. So all that used to be a factory at one time. And this is what I used to talk about in many of my videos regarding living across the street from the railroad tracks. And here are the Metro North Railroad tracks. Here's a shot of them. Here's a shot of the train I used to see when I was a kid growing up. Because I used to see the trains all the time outside the window. You could pretty much time when they were coming out. And again, this was my view as a kid for the first 15 years of my life. From 1973 to about 1988. So this is what I used to see every day outside my window, was these trains every day. So this was just something I used to see every day, going to school, coming home from school. And this was, again, part of what I used to see. Now, I live right next to the Morrisania post office. This is just right down the block from where I used to live. So, and again, you see another auto body shop. Again, this area is very industrial. Very, very industrial. And this is where I used to live. Again, Park Avenue and 167th Street. I used to live on, that's where I used to live. And that was the neighborhood. And this is the back parking lot of the post office next to the building I used to live in. And we're going to approach the building I used to live in right now. Again, I'm going to show you the neighborhood and how rough it is, because this neighborhood was really rough back in the early 80s and the 70s. And this is the building I grew up in for the first 15 years of my life. This was 3430 Park Avenue. This is where I used to live as a kid. And this is the building that you'll see mentioned in many of my novels. The number 3430, this is the number that I'm referencing regarding that building. This is the building. They've renovated it since I first lived here, and they made it look completely different. But I remember when this was a really run-down, ramshackle building, and there were some winters where there was no heat, where there was cold water, and it was a rough time in this neighborhood. So I remember all that growing up as a kid 30 years ago. And yes, they've put a veneer over it, but it's still, the neighborhood is still just as rough as it was before.
But I think it went till like 2 in the morning.